Okay, hello Year 12. Um, this is the second half of the situation ethics lesson. So we looked at broadly what situation ethics is last lesson. So the application of the only law, which is love relative to each situation. And in this lesson, we're going to look at how exactly that works in practice. So Joseph Fletcher sets out 6 fundamental principles. These are 6 things that you need to think about in an ethical situation that will guide you into making the correct and the most loving decision. Okay, so first one, only one thing is intrinsically good, namely love. Nothing else is good in itself. 2, the ruling norm of Christian decision is love, nothing else. The only rule. 3, love and justice are the same thing, for love is justice distributed, nothing else. 4, love wills the neighbour's good, whether we like him or not. 5, only the ends justifies the means, nothing else. And 6, love's decisions are made situationally, not prescriptively. Okay, so what you can see here is that I've highlighted letters, and this is to help us to remember these principles in an exam. And I've highlighted G, R, J, L, C, and S. So the acronym for this is giraffes reach juicy lychees, climbing stairs. Okay, so let's go for the first one. So G, giraffes, good. So Fletcher says only one thing is intrinsically good. That means good in itself, by itself. There's only one thing in the world which is good. Extrinsic means not part of the essential nature of something. So everything else is extrinsically good. Everything else is good only because it produces love. So actions aren't intrinsically good or evil. There's no such thing as murder being bad, murder being good. There's only one good, and that's love. Okay? Everything else is extrinsically good. There's only one good, which is love as an outcome. Actions aren't good or bad. Murder, rape, torture, they're not good or bad. They're only good or bad relative to love, which is the only good. So only one thing is intrinsically good, nothing else. So here are some quotes from Fletcher that you can use in your papers. So only love is objectively valid, only love is universal. We can only describe actions as right or wrong according to love. Why do most of us think that murder is wrong? Because most of the time, murder isn't loving. It's not because murder is wrong. It's because it doesn't produce love in most situations. And as soon as it does produce love, murder is acceptable. So would a situationist say murder is wrong? No, because actions aren't good or bad. Very similar to consequentialist systems like utilitarianism here. Actions are only useful. They only have utility. They're only good or bad insofar as they produce or don't produce love as an outcome. Situationists wouldn't say charity is good either. Situationists would say love is good. It's the only thing that's good. Situationists might say murder is extrinsically bad because murder might be bad if externally it doesn't produce a loving outcome. But the situationist would never say rape is bad. Okay, rape is only bad relative to the situation. So we're going to apply this to euthanasia. So this is the table that we'll use to understand these principles. So giraffes stands for love is the only good. And this means nothing is good in itself, only love. Would this allow euthanasia? Okay, well, let's just think of euthanasia in the case of somebody who wants to die because they're in pain. Would you focus on anything else, like not killing being good? Or following the law being good? No, you wouldn't. The only thing that matters is what is the most loving thing to do in that situation. So the only thing we should consider is whether a loving result is produced. So maybe according to this principle, euthanasia is acceptable. Okay, so that's the first principle. Love is the only good. Okay, what does normative mean? Well, it means it tells us what we ought to do. So the second principle is the ruling norm of Christian decision is love, nothing else. So the only thing that should ever tell us what to do is love. Love is the only rule. All other laws, commandments, and morals don't matter. Love is the highest rule. Okay, so giraffes reach. Love is the only good. Love is the only rule. The commandments are not absolute. Jesus broke them. Love replaces the law. Love isn't equal to any other law. Love is the highest law. So Fletcher's quotes again, love replaces law. We follow law, if at all, for love's sake. We do not follow love for law's sake. Love and law cannot be partners. At best, love only employs law when it seems worthwhile. Okay, so the second one, giraffes reach. Love is the only rule. Okay, this means the only law is love. So when you write about this in an exam, what you'd say is, other rules don't matter. For example, the law, which says that euthanasia is wrong, or the Ten Commandments, which say that killing is wrong. These laws don't matter. So euthanasia is acceptable. No other rules matter, like don't kill. Only love matters. And if it shows more love, then it's acceptable. Okay? Giraffes reach juicy lychees climbing stairs. We've done the first two. Love is the only good. Love is the only rule. Next, love and justice. So love and justice are the same. For justice is love distributed, nothing else. You cannot separate justice from love. Whenever there is justice, love is in action. Justice is Christian love using its head. So what Fletcher means by this is it's very similar to utilitarianism. The most loving thing to do is the action which produces the greatest amount of love for the greatest number of people. Okay, so this is very similar to quantitative utilitarianism. Justice equals more people experiencing love. Okay, so in this situation, or in this principle, it's about using your head, working out which action produces more love for more people. Okay, it's not about emotion. It's not about emotion. So let's say there's a situation where you can either save your brother or you can save 10 strangers. In this situation, the right thing to do is the one that produces the greatest amount of love for the greatest number of people. So even if you storge love as an emotion, your family, it doesn't matter. So it's not an emotion. Love is calculating. The decision is not made emotionally, but after consideration. So what is best for all people equals what is most loving for all people. So in this situation, who should be saved, 1 or 5? Well, whatever shows most love to most people, which means saving the 5, that's what justice commands, even if that person happens to be your best friend and these people are enemies. Okay? So love and justice are the same, even if it's your mum, because that would be storge love. You must save the 5 because that's the most just thing to do. Okay, even if it's your lover, because that would be eros. even if it's your best friend, because that would be philos. So Fletcher says justice is Christian love using its head. It's not an emotion. You need to use your head to work out what action produces love equally. Justice is how are we to calculate, weigh, and distribute love's benefits among so many. So love should be distributed fairly to the most, or the highest number of people. Okay? So justice is love coping with situations where distribution is called for. On this basis, it becomes plain that as the love ethic searches seriously for a social policy, it must form a coalition with utilitarianism. Fletcher has been massively criticized for this because Fletcher borrows from utilitarianism, the idea of the greatest outcome for the greatest number, the principle of utility. And the reason he's been criticized is because, as we know, utilitarianism is not Christian. So this is the idea of the greatest good for the greatest number. Okay, so the most loving thing to do is what produces the most love for the highest number or the greatest number of people. So say you're a doctor and you only have one dose of morphine, which is a painkiller. Should you give it to a mother of three or a convicted rapist? Mother of three, you could argue, because it shows more love to more people. Love distributed fairly. Okay? And that's why agape is so important, because agape is fair for all people. So Fletcher talks about euthanasia in his book, and he talks about the insurance problem. The insurance problem is an actual situation that happened that Fletcher was involved in. There was a man who was dying, and he had two choices. He either keeps taking the drugs that he's taking, but that will cost so much money that his family won't have any money left once he's dead. He's dying anyway, right? He's going to be dead in a few months. Or he stops taking the drugs and he dies, but his family gets money. So I'll say that again. He either keeps taking the drugs, but his family gets no money and he stays alive a little bit longer, or he stops taking the drugs and he dies, passive euthanasia, but his family gets money. But Fletcher says the right decision is the one which produces more love for more people, and that means he should not take the drugs anymore so that his family get the insurance money. Okay? So, juicy then. Love and justice are the same. Love shared equally is the same as justice. This would allow euthanasia. This is difficult. I'm saying allow euthanasia, but really situation ethics isn't for or against euthanasia. It depends on the situation. So in this situation, the insurance problem, yes, euthanasia would be acceptable. Okay, next. Love wills the neighbour's good whether we like him or not. So it's not about feeling or friendship. It's not about storge. It's not about eros. And it's not about philos. Your neighbour is anybody, the good Samaritan example. It's unconditional. Okay, and we've got the picture of Anthony Walker up here. And Anthony Walker is a good example of this because his mother, G. Walker, forgave his killers. Not because she loved them as friends or as lovers or as family members, but because they're human beings. That's the example of Christian love. Okay? So love wills the neighbour's good whether we like him or not. To love Christianly is a matter of attitude, not a feeling. There is nothing sentimental about Christian love. It's not an emotion. So to love Christianly is an attitude. So, the case of euthanasia then, Love is not liking, the fourth principle. Love is not personal, it's impersonal. Would it allow euthanasia? Well, it depends who's doing it. This is difficult, isn't it? If the doctor does it, it might be agape because he doesn't know the patient. But maybe if the family member is allowing euthanasia, maybe that's actually storge love. So that's tricky. And the question becomes, can you show agape even if you still feel storge or eros or philos towards someone? Can you still show agape love to a family member even if you have emotions towards them as well? Oh, and I would argue, yes, you can. Okay, next. Only the ends justify the means, nothing else. This just means consequentialism. Each situation has to be decided by the outcome. This is why we say climbing, okay? Consequences. Anything is justified as long as love is an outcome or a consequence. Okay? Only the end of love justifies the means, the action. So Fletcher again says anything is right or wrong according to how much love is generated. Nothing can justify an act except a loving purpose. So the end justifies the means. So climbing stands for consequentialist. Euthanasia would say it's acceptable because any action is acceptable so long as there's a loving outcome. And then finally, we have the last principle. Love's decisions are made situationally, not prescriptively. This means that we reject rules and instead we look at the situation. What does the situation demand? Now, a prescription is like an order that's given to you, like a doctor's prescription. And Fletcher says that all decisions should be made based on the situation, not on a prescription. A prescription might be the Ten Commandments, something that you bring into an ethical situation. Each situation is unique. Situationists fit rules to reality rather than reality to rules. You set aside the rules in situations in order to fulfill the rule of love. Okay, so you don't take anything in prescriptively into the ethical situation. You just look at the concrete, unique situation. So love decides based on the unique situation. And you could argue, yes, this would allow euthanasia as long as the situation suggests that the most loving thing to do would be to allow the person to die. Okay, so in an exam, I would suggest only maybe writing 2 of these out and exploring them. And the acronyms giraffes reach juicy lychees climbing stairs, and that should help you remember these principles. And I'd like you to write these principles out. So love is the only good, love is the only rule, love and justice are the same, love is not liking, the end justifies the means, and love decides there and then. Okay, there's nothing new here from the last lesson. This is just Fletcher's way of kind of making sense of it. Giraffes reach juicy lychees climbing stairs. Okay. So you might want to go through this. We'll do this in class anyway, but this is just a quick sort of test to see what you can remember. What does G stand for? Well, love is the only good. L, love is not liking. J, love and justice are the same thing. R, love is the only rule. C, the end justifies the means. S, love decides there and then. Okay, so you might want to test yourself on this acronym to help you to remember it. Again, love is not liking. Love is the only good. The end justifies the means. Love is the only rule. Love and justice are the same. Love decides there and then. Okay, so let's apply this to a unique situation then. Okay, so let's imagine a railway drawbridge operator is closing the bridge for a train that's about to arrive when he sees that his son is trapped in the machinery. He's got two choices. To close the bridge will kill his son, but it will save the train. To open the bridge will save his son, but everybody, hundreds of people on the train will die. So what should he do? Save his son or save the people on the train? Okay, and you might want to pause this and go through this in your own time. According to the first principle, what would you do? Love is the only good. So what I've said is, according to the first principle, you close the bridge and save the many. This is because there's nothing else that's good in this situation except for more love for more people. Killing your son isn't a bad thing if it leads to more love. The only thing that's right is more love. Second principle, love is the only rule. What would you do? According to the second principle, you close the bridge because there might be a rule that says don't kill your children, but that doesn't matter because the only rule that matters is producing more love for more people. Third principle, love and justice are the same. What would you do? Well, in this situation, you would close the bridge and save the many because that's justice. That's love distributed between or amongst the greatest number of people. Yes, your son dies, but more people experience love. Fourth principle, love is not liking. What would you do? In this situation, again, you close the bridge, kill your son. And that's because love or agape love is not about the fact that you love your son, you like your son. It doesn't matter that you love your son. You need to treat your son as just one other person and show love equally to all people, whether they're your strangers or they're your son or your family members, it doesn't matter. Fifth principle, love justifies the means, or that means the ends justify the means. What would you do? Okay, in this situation, again, you close the bridge because the only thing that matters is the outcome. If more love is shown by killing your son, then it justifies the means. The end justifies the means. And finally, the sixth principle, love decides there and then. Okay, and according to the sixth principle, you would close the bridge. And that's because you don't go into the situation with prescriptive laws like do not kill. You have to decide based on the snapshot of the ethical decision that's in front of you. What does it demand that I do in this situation? And in that situation, the most loving thing to do is to break the rule of don't kill and kill your son. You have to do it. Okay, so here is a second example. Now you have the slides that have come alongside this video, so I'm not going to go through this one, but you can check your answers. What I suggest you do is you pause the video now and go to those slides and go through it yourself. Okay, so just pause the video now. Okay, and once you've done that, you should have had an attempt at it now. You can just have a quick read of what I've written. Okay, and we have another example now. A man wishes to be helped to die in order to allow his family to gain insurance money. Again, what would each of the six principles tell you to do? Pause the video and think about it. Okay, Some responses then? Okay, so testing the principles. I know she's my wife, but I don't care. Which principle is this? Okay, I would say this is the fourth one. Love is not liking. Which principle is this? I will decide how I should act when I'm actually there. Okay, well, I say this is the sixth principle. Love decides there and then. The only thing that is correct by itself is love and care for others. Okay, well, I say this is the first principle. Love is the only good. The fairest thing to do is the most loving. Well, I'd say this is the third principle. Love and justice are the same. I will do it for love. I'd say that's the fifth principle. Love justifies the means, or the end justifies the means. Finally, and that's the second principle. Okay, there are also, you don't need to know this as well, but there are also 4 working principles. There are 6 fundamental principles and 4 working principles for Fletcher. So these are pragmatism. The action taken must be practical and actually work. Relativism. All situations are always relative. Positivism. The action taken must be because the person believes in agape love. So this is to do with the intention. And finally, personalism. Ethics is about what is the best interest of people, not laws. Okay. So that's situation ethics. Let's look at some AO2 issues and then we'll quickly read through an essay. So you can think about this to yourself. Again, you've got the OCR and my textbook to help you with some AO2 ideas. Do you think situation ethics is a helpful way of making a moral decision? Do you think it's useful? Maybe it gives people too much freedom. Maybe people aren't really man come of age. Maybe we need rules, we need laws. Maybe it's too complicated. Maybe it's not complicated enough. Maybe it's actually quite simple because it just involves one rule, right? Love your neighbor. The Catholic Church hates situation ethics. In fact, they banned it being taught in all Catholic institutions because the Catholic Church believes that situation ethics doesn't follow Christian teachings because it gives too much freedom to individuals to do anything at all, even horrible actions. Situation ethics says any action is acceptable. Can we imagine Jesus doing any action? Really? Okay, so you can look at these in your own time. Is situation ethics a helpful way of making a moral decision? Do you think situation ethics is a Christian ethical theory? This is a good question. You might say yes, because it's based on Jesus. You might say no, because there are some things Jesus would never do. You might also say no, because you've got to take into account the Old Testament. You might also say no, because Fletcher actually stopped being a Christian after a while. Does that matter, though? You might say no, because it relies too much on utilitarianism, which is a secular ethical theory. Okay, so this is how you might structure that kind of essay. First paragraph, you just explain with these key terms and then have your opinion. And then I would apply maybe 2 of the fundamental principles to euthanasia. And then I would spend the rest of the essay focusing on whether you think it's actually Christian or not. Okay. Right, so let's look at an actual essay then. Does Fletcher's agape love mean nothing more, excuse me, the wanting more for the person involved. And this is actually a tricky question. And what this means is agape love really religious? Or is it just wanting the best for people? Is it really any different to utilitarianism? So this is what I've written. Situational ethics is a normative ethical theory. This means that it tells us what we ought to do. Excuse me, got a bit of a cold. It is also a teleological ethical theory. This means that the rightness or wrongness of an action is contained in the outcome rather than the action itself. Joseph Fletcher was a Protestant who believed that decisions should be made according to whether or not agape love is produced. In this essay, I'm going to argue that Fletcher's agape love is nothing more than wanting the best for the person involved, because he ignores the other half of Jesus' commandment, which is to love God. So my argument here is that Fletcher focuses on love thy neighbour, but he doesn't actually focus on love God. And for that reason, it's similar to utilitarianism, but it's not very Christian. So Fletcher rejected legalistic ethical theories for being too restrictive and failing to recognise people as man come of age. He criticised natural law for this reason, as it failed to give people any flexibility with moral decision-making. Fletcher also rejected antinomianism, an approach to morality that has no rules, because it would lead to chaos. Fletcher's situation ethics is halfway between the two. It takes a situational approach guided by one rule, the rule of agape love. Fletcher was inspired by the New Testament and the teachings of Jesus, because he believed that Jesus' moral message was made for man come of age, in contrast to the legalistic approach of the Old Testament Mosaic law. Agape love is selfless, unconditional love for others that is characterized in Jesus' teaching to love thy neighbor. Fletcher refers to the importance of Jesus setting aside the Sabbath law to heal the injured man. Fletcher believed that this is what a Christian ethic should look like, rather than adhering to a set of strict rules. Some people may argue that Fletcher's agape love is clearly more than wanting the best for the person involved, and is in fact very religious, because it is based upon the teachings of Jesus, who sought to teach people how to live a holistically good life. Agape love enables the person to develop the virtue of love and showing selfless love to all people. However, many would disagree, particularly in the Catholic Church. Pope Pius claimed that Fletcher's situation ethics is not a Christian ethic, because Fletcher was willing to break the rules of Christianity to do the best thing. I agree with this criticism, because it seems that Fletcher is isolating this teaching of Jesus out of the context of the biblical narrative, ignoring the other rules found in Christianity. This shows that Fletcher's agape love is concerned only with what's best for the person involved, and is not particularly religious, because it is willing to set aside other rules that get in the way of this desired outcome and ignore Jesus' teachings on following the law. In the New Testament, Jesus states, "I've not come to abolish the law, but to fulfill it." So the argument here is that Jesus didn't want to get rid of laws, so Fletcher is wrong. Fletcher provides a set of practical guidelines to help a person make a decision and understand agape love. Fletcher refers to agape love as acting in your neighbour's best interests, with a careful eye to all the factors in the situation. He sets out 6 fundamental principles, one of which is love is the only intrinsic good. This means that actions are neither right nor wrong in themselves, but only in respect to whether or not they help the person and produce agape love or not. Agape love is the only good. In my view, this seems to reflect the view that Fletcher's agape is concerned only with wanting the best for the person involved, because it is only the loving purpose that is taken into consideration when a decision is made. This means that people could justify lying or stealing if it has a loving purpose. These things are clearly opposed to Christianity, which makes Fletcher's agape seem too different to the Christian concept of agape love. William Barclay, this is a critic in the OCR book, criticizes Fletcher because he argues that the law has a number of vital functions that society should not do away with, such as protection and the prevention of crime. I believe Fletcher's agape love seems to distance itself from the other teachings found in the Bible that are equally as important. Another of the fundamental principles is love and justice are the same, for justice is love distributed, nothing else. This means that agape love should be evenly distributed to ensure justice in society. For example, a doctor is required to distribute drugs equally to patients to ensure there is no injustice in society. This resonates with the concern of utilitarianism to produce the greatest amount of happiness for the greatest number of people. This suggests that Fletcher is only concerned with wanting the best for the person involved, because agape love requires the decision maker to decide what is in the best interest of others and what best serves their needs. Fletcher also refers to agape love as goodwill in partnership with reason. Fletcher makes it clear that agape love is not emotional, but instead a cognitive and discerning decision-making driver. He sets agape against philos, eros, and storge, which are emotional loves that Fletcher would argue do not simply want the best for the person involved, but also for the individual, because you have an emotional attachment to friends, family, and lovers. For Fletcher, agape love ensures that the decision maker is doing what is best for others, not because of their emotional attachment to the person, but because the action is in their best interest. One of the working principles is pragmatism, which asks the question of what works. This means that the decision maker makes a decision that is practical and works for the people involved. For example, in a case of conjoined twins, the Catholic Church wanted to let both girls die, whereas Fletcher would have wanted to save one of the girls, even though this involved killing the other, as this is the most practical thing to do. This suggests that Fletcher's agape is only concerned with wanting what's best for those involved, because all the principles help the individual work out what is in the best interests of others. In conclusion, I agree that Fletcher's agape is concerned with nothing more than wanting the best for the person involved, because Fletcher ignores the other part of the commandment, which is to love God. Fletcher's situation ethics is focused solely on the best interests of the other person, which ignores the Christian foundation of this principle. Although some people may argue that his principles reflect the example of Jesus, I would disagree, because Fletcher would happily disregard other rules of Christianity to serve agape love, which is not the Christian understanding of the term, and reduces Fletcher's agape to simply wanting the best for others. Okay, so that finishes situation ethics. And next week we'll be looking at our last unit on the ethics unit, or our last topic on the ethics unit, which is euthanasia. Great, thank you very much, A12.